Hi everyone, today we will go through my secret weapon of achieving goals and break out of crisis and leave the past and go on into the future. I've used this method on several different areas in my life. Building a six-figure company, building a multiple six-figure net worth, learning to speak Brazilian Portuguese, keeping the same weight as I was in my teens, and reaching over 1 million views on YouTube, on videos that I participate in. Then some people say, well, that maybe is easy for you. You don't know what adversity and what challenges I've had in my life. But the truth is, everyone will face great adversities. And as a matter of fact, everyone should expect to see one or two big crises in their life or business every year. The same is true for me. When I was 19, I started out my adulthood with having a large accident. I needed to go to the hospital and make a quite large surgery. So I could have multiple excuses on why I could never achieve these things, but let's focus on what we can do. What can we do to get out of the negative and start facing a more bright future for ourselves? So to illustrate this, I've made a graph here of the power of compounding. So this works in both ways, either in a positive way or it will work in a negative way. What we want to do is we want to spend as much time as possible making things that puts us in the upper curve here. For example, we want to take responsibility. Even if there have been horrible things that has happened in our life, it doesn't give us anything. It doesn't give us any value to say, oh, it's their fault. I'm a victim of this and this happened to me because this accident happened to me. That means that I cannot do this and this and this. If we fall into that way of thinking, which is very easy, by the way, we won't have the power. We give the power away to someone else. So we want to take responsibility. We want to say, no, it was my fault that I had that accident. I should have not been out in the middle of the night and in that area, for example. That was my mistake. It's my fault that I had that accident. When we do that, we take back the control, even though it might sound strange. We take back the control and now we have power to act in a positive way. Another thing that has helped me enormously is to take my own initiative, to not sit and wait for other people to tell me what to do, or to wait for someone else to bring me an opportunity, or wait for someone else to say, oh, Peter, now we should go and do this and this and this, but actually take initiative myself. And that is a huge power in itself, because if we are in the middle of a crisis or everything is falling apart in our life and we don't know what to do, then at least we have the initiative to start doing something that takes us in a positive direction. That is a huge difference from the opposite way of feeling self-pity and just sitting and waiting for someone else to tell us what to do. The next point that has been very helpful to me in my journey of positive compounding is prevention. Preparing for the future, making sure that in the future that I have money that I need, making sure that I develop skills today that might help me tomorrow, making all those small things so that I help my future self, that I take care of my health today so that I'm healthy tomorrow, for example. You know, most people have the attitude of thinking that, my health will take care of itself, and if I get sick, I get a pill from the doctor. And that is, according to me, a very faulty way of thinking about health. Health, to me, is a accumulation of our daily habits and how we take care of our health. The same is true for my finances. For example, if I always underspend what I earn, I will always have more money than I need, which is a fantastic future. Many people have the opposite attitude of spending more than they earn each month. So they take out credit card loans or have a buy now, pay later attitude. And this will cause enormous financial stress in the future. Another point that has helped me enormously is learning from the best. If, for example, when I wanted to have better finances and learn more about capital allocation and how to have healthy, abundant finances, I decided to study Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, who are some of the best people around this area. That totally changed my way of thinking and viewing finances, rather than just handling cash flow, just handling money coming in and where it goes every month, to how can I make sure that I set myself up for an abundant financial future, for example. A more common way of thinking about finances is, as I said before, spending more than we earn, or something that I also see is many people in the middle class, they save money and keep it in a bank account, which then diminishes, it gets eaten by inflation each month. So they're actually it's a zero-sum game, because they earn money each month, but that capital that they have saved up is diminishing each month and each year. So, and by learning from the best, we can learn to see things in a new way. And when we have a new view of an area, we can take totally different actions in that area. And that has helped me enormously. Another important aspect is to have a positive and good attitude, because that will both help ourselves going through challenges. Because if we have a habit of being positive, seeing things from the bright side, it will be easier for us to tackle challenges and go through a crisis. The opposite of this that I see many people are doing is when they meet someone else, they constantly complain. That's the way of relating to other people. They complain about the weather, they complain about how bad things are, and that's how they relate to other people. And that kind of makes them a gray cloud that people don't want to be around. One thing that really helped me in my company to reach 6 figures was to treat all my customers with a bright, positive attitude. Like, I had the assumption that they will probably have live tough lives. They go to a work where they're underappreciated, they are not appreciated by their spouse. So if I can be a positive light in their life that they look forward to meet, that will really help me and my company. That really helped me, and it also became a habit that I try to do naturally in all relationships. The founder of IKEA, Ingvar Kamprad, he had the philosophy that a little love doesn't cost anything to give, and I thought that was a brilliant way of looking at this. Is something that you can be generous with, and it doesn't cost you 1 cent, but you can be generous and appreciate and see other people, and that will have a really positive effect. Then many might say, does it really make a difference to do these things? Well, for me it did. So I'm a living example of that these things worked. And I also do this video to really look how these things worked and to double down on them in the future. The big challenge of this graph is that it takes quite a lot of time for us to see any real effect. So let's say we practice taking initiative. If we do that 1 or 2 days, we won't see any real results. As a matter of fact, all these things that I talked about takes a lot of time before the results start kicking in. So that's why it's so easy to forget about these things. You know, it's so much easier just to lay on the sofa, scroll on social media, watching series, for example, rather than to take initiative, because that takes some energy. It takes mental energy to figure out, okay, what should I actually do, and then go and do it. One example of this is in my 20s, I have neglected my health a little bit. So I could not do 1 push-up, and I could definitely not do 1 pull-up, where you pull yourself up in a bar like this. And one of my friends, he was a fitness coach, so I started hanging around him. I took the initiative to start hanging around him, going with him to the gym. That was one initiative. And then he started showing me how I could gain strength. And I continued, and it took a really long time before I started seeing any results. And it was really intimidating to go with this guy who was extremely fit. He was extremely strong. And I was so weak compared to this guy. But I continued. And soon I could do my first real pull-up. From not being able to do 1 pull-up or 1 push-up, I then built up so that I could do 20 real push-ups, and I think it was 8 real pull-ups that I could do, which takes quite some strength training to do. So by having faith in doing this practice, I could really see the results, and they kicked in after a long time. It took maybe 6 months until I started seeing some real results. Another example that it takes time for this to kick in is when I started my first YouTube channel about voice coaching. I took a course on how to make YouTube videos and how to market oneself via YouTube. And I posted my first YouTube videos, and I was terrified while I did it, because I was wondering what everyone was going to think of me while I did this. One of my friends, he actually saw some of the videos, and he said, "Who do you think is going to watch this?" So it felt like there were so many things working against me, and that it was so tough to do that, because I needed to face my own fear, go through the fear of rejection. I needed to learn how to create these videos and do these things. It took much longer time for me to have an income from this than I thought. So many times when I was in the grocery store going to buy my groceries, my card declined, and it was so embarrassing. I remember too that I needed to put back the things, and I say, "Oh, sorry, I don't have money in my account to buy food today." But eventually, because this was so early on, those videos took on. One of those videos that I recorded initially got over 100,000 views. Recording these videos, speaking in front of a camera, editing myself, these things made me a much better communicator, and I learned how to convey a message. So taking initiative, starting, facing adversity, but keeping on doing it anyway, that enabled me later to have a 6-figure company doing this, because I had started early. I had started in gaining experience in these things earlier than other people. Then I applied learning from the best. I looked at what are the best voice coaches in the world doing. I did interviews with them. I got coaching from them. I started to learn how the best were doing, and then I started to apply that in my coaching, and that enabled me to be much more effective than what other voice coaches were doing. On the path to creating that 6-figure company, I actually failed 2 companies before that. And it felt like I was a total failure. It was falling into the abyss of misery. But actually then just getting up again, brushing off the dust, instead of self-pity, blaming other people, I saw I actually have the power. I can take initiative again. I can do things correctly, and I can get back on track. And that is what I did. What I want to exemplify with these things is that everyone will face adversities, crises, and what matters most is how we deal with them and what we do day to day. Can we put in place positive daily habits that, if we compound them, if we add them up together, they would bring us something positive in the future? So if we take a glass of water, for example, and then we ask ourselves, if I would multiply this with 1,000 days, would that have any significant impact on my life? Chances are that that would have a positive effect on your life, because you wouldn't be drinking some sugared, carbonated drink. Let's say we make a meal of unprocessed real food. If we would multiply that by 1,000, would that have a significant impact on my life? Yes, chances are that it would, because then instead we would not be eating crap food, we would not be eating fast food, but we would be eating real food that gives us real energy and that contributes to our health. So let's say someone is coming in after us in a store, and we decide to hold the door up for them. Would that have a significant impact on our life? That would seem like a small, insignificant action to do. But if we multiply that by 1,000, if we make that a habit and do that for the rest of our life, chances are that that small habit of positivity will come back to us in a way. The opposite might have been to slam the door in someone's face. And that would definitely have a negative effect if we would multiply that by 1,000 in our lives. So let's say if we decide to write a thank you card to a friend, someone that means something to us, or to a potential client. It might seem like a small, insignificant act, but if we add that, if we multiply that by 1,000, that could really have a positive effect in our life. Because if we would do that over a lifetime, then we would have 1,000 people who want to do something for us in return because of reciprocity. You see, the list can go on, but for me that is a very good, it's a good way of checking if something is worth doing or not. We should also really make an effort to examine our negative habits like this. If we decide to scroll on social media, or we find ourselves doing it, if we would multiply that by 1,000 hours, for example, would that have a negative impact on my life? Chances are that that would make anyone feel quite miserable about themselves if they would do that 1,000 hours. Another thing we could do is look in the mirror and see if we are not grooming particularly well, or if we don't dress well. Would that seemingly insignificant act have an effect on us in the future if we multiply that by 1,000 days, for example? Chances are that it would, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Another one could be that we only watch the stock market and hope that that will go up instead of going out and making new money. If we multiply that by 1,000 days, that would not add any new income that we can pay our bills or invest with. So can you see, by examining our own list of negative habits, we can really see what they will lead to in the future. It's like we time travel for a second, and then we see, oh shit, that will actually be really negative for me in the future. So I better correct that. I better shapen up, This video is not about me bragging about what I have done and what I've accomplished. This is a reminder for you that you can affect your own future with the choices that you make today, and that you have a chance, that you're not stuck in crisis or challenges from the past, that you're not stuck in that, but that you can actually take back the power by reclaiming the responsibility of your life. And because that is the first step for a more bright future. And then you can start to examine, what are you doing each day? How can you, if you can master one day, you will master your life, because your life is simply just one day at a time. So if you can examine what you do in a day and in a week, and make sure to fill that with positive habits and starve out the negative ones, then if you keep on doing that, I promise you, you will see an enormous result in the future. You might not see a result in 6 months, but after that, good things will start to kick in. And then the key is to continue doing it, to not stop it, to continue to doing these positive things for a positive change. Because you want to be on the top, this one here, you want to be on the top side of this curve. You do not want to be in the bottom one. If you find yourself in the bottom one, you need to snap out of that. And every day you need to make sure that you are on the top one, that you're not falling back into bad behavior, and make sure to associate with great habits, do great habits that take you upward. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.